You're listening to the Creator Life That Is Beautiful podcast. I'm your host, Letitia Ringe, and this is episode number 39.
From the victim perception, which is, oh, she's, disrespecting me, which I say may well be the case, you handing all your power over to her. She is the one that is responsible for everything, right? So you can't do anything about it. But when you start seeing her as an extension of you, the question would be rather, how am I disrespecting myself through her?
Welcome to the Creator Life That Is Beautiful podcast. I am your host, Letitia Ringe, and this podcast is designed to inspire, empower, and support you on the journey of uncovering your truth and purpose in the world. So thank you so much for joining me. As always, whether you're a new listener or whether you've been a long-time listener, all are welcome, and I'm so grateful and appreciative to have you here, taking action to move towards living in alignment with your beautiful purpose. This is what it's all about, my friends. This is what it's all about. And today I'm so excited because I am sharing with you such an inspiring and thought-provoking conversation that is really going to help you get your head around why perception is everything and how to make the unconscious conscious so that you are able to shift your perception. So let me just dive in and let you know who we're speaking to. So today I'm talking to my friend, the beautiful Dannie Reeve. Her name is Danielle Reeve, also known as Dannie Reeve, and she is a BioNeuroEmotion practitioner. Now, Dannie will explain to you in this episode exactly what that is. But basically, there are so many similarities we have discovered. Dannie is one of my good friends here in London. I met her through the Jess Lively community. She's also a Flow with Intention member like me, and we have the most amazing chats. And we've discovered so many similarities between theta healing and BioNeuroEmotion, and we've wanted to use this space today, the podcast, to share one of our pretty regular conversations, but with a little bit more focus, to explain to you what BNE even is and how it can help you in changing unhealthy patterns showing up in your life, but also to dive into how our thoughts and emotions work, what is our unconscious, what is our conscious mind, how our manifestations work and how our thoughts and emotions affect those, and also so helpfully, Dannie has also taken my Embrace Your Feminine Essence course. So for anyone who's been interested in joining, you'll be able to get her take on exactly what it was like and how it benefited her and who she thinks this course is for. We will also be diving into purpose, what Dannie's advice is for anyone discovering purpose and what purpose means to her. This is such an inspiring conversation. I mean, I had so much fun recording this, and I'm so grateful for Dannie coming on because these are complicated topics. You will hear so much about the unconscious, about manifesting, about how our emotions affect our body, about how they affect our manifestations, about flow, about awareness, about how our family and the traumas that they've experienced can then impact our own life, and why a conscious shift in perception allows us to create new beliefs and behaviors in our life that supports us in the way we most want. And what I love about BioNeuroEmotion is that it's looking at both the science and the metaphysical. And I like to see it as it's like an overview of all of these different streams, but working together. So I'm so excited for you to listen to this episode. It is a long one, but we were so in the flow. We kept going because I just think this is going to be so helpful for all of you listening. And it was just so much fun to record. So I want to thank Dannie again for coming on and sharing this conversation with me. I'm so excited for you to learn more. particularly about Dannie's own journey to studying BioNeuroEmotion, how she ended up there. Dannie was someone who did suffer from depression quite badly, and BioNeuroEmotion helped her to overcome that. So she'll be sharing exactly how that happened in this episode. I also want to let you know that if you do stick around right to the end, in the outro of this episode, I'll be sharing a special offer that Dannie is offering to Create a Life That Is Beautiful listeners for the month of November to work with her. She'll also be sharing at the end of the episode how you too can study BioNeuroEmotion if that is something that you are interested in doing. Before we dive into the episode, I just want to also let you know that I have been very excitedly working on a new project. This is all to do with finding purpose. You're going to hear more about it. So I want you to, if this is something that you're really serious about delving into more in your own life, if you're someone that really wants to make a difference, you really want to be living in alignment with your purpose, you want to live a life that's fulfilled, you know you've got something that you're here to do, we all do, P.S., and you want some support in helping you show up for that purpose and discover what it is, please join us over on my newsletter list at letitiaringe.com/community. I'm going to have some really helpful resources shared there, as well as the details of my next project that I'm working on that you're going to find super, super helpful. So once again, sign up for that newsletter at letitiaringe.com/community. And if you're someone who is interested in learning how to tap into your feminine energy and integrate that with your masculine, and this includes concepts like creativity, intuition, flow, your menstrual cycle, trusting, receiving, all of these wonderfully juicy topics that we all know are so key to us really living a life that is full of ease, taking that path of least resistance and manifesting, I invite you to check out my signature online course, Embrace Your Feminine Essence. When you sign up, you get immediate access to all of the course materials, and I am holding 3 live group coaching calls that you will also have the option to ask me questions and also to learn, because I'm going to be sharing about 3 other subjects that are going to be so cool, so thought-provoking, and so helpful for you. And this is happening this year. The first coaching call is going to be happening next week. I'm releasing the details this week, the date, to have that set. So if you're wanting to join Embrace Your Feminine Essence, I invite you to do that now, because you will have access to all of that. And this time with me is going to be really, really valuable. So you can head over to letitiaringe.com/EYFE, which stands for Embrace Your Feminine Essence. Okay. These are all my announcements for today. Without further ado, I want to dive into this episode, and I'm so looking forward to hearing your takeaways. Enjoy, my beautiful friends. Hey, Danielle, welcome to the Create a Life That Is Beautiful podcast.
Hi, Letitia. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about our conversation.
I am so excited about our conversation as well. So for you listening, Danielle, also known as Dannie, is a good friend of mine, and she is also a member of Flow with Intention for any of our Flow listeners. And so I met Danielle at a Jess Lively meetup. We've been hanging out ever since. And Dannie is also a BNE practitioner, which is a really, really interesting modality that she's going to talk to us all about during this conversation. But to get started, I just want to do something a little bit fun before we dive into all of my questions I have for you to pick your brain, Dannie.
Yay!
So they're just rapid fire. Just say the first thing that comes to mind, and so we can get to know a little bit more about you. Okay. So the first is, what is your sun sign?
My sun sign is Capricorn.
It is.
Yes.
I already know that. I'm a Capricorn too.
I had to think about that one. I was like, oh.
I know, it's confusing when you say sun sign, but yes. So, okay, Capricorn. So all about our strong foundation, the root chakra, I reckon. But anyway, we don't need to go into that. Favorite color?
Red.
And you know what's so interesting? The root chakra, the color is red.
Really?
Isn't that amazing? Favorite crystal?
At the moment, Larimar.
Oh, I don't know. What does it look like?
It's look, I have it. It's blue. It's bluish,
Oh,
and I have a bracelet,
so it's
a
a
Larimar
light
bracelet.
blue.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's gorgeous. So for you listening, I'm just looking at the bracelet now. Or
It
cool.
flew. It flew into my existence through flow.
Oh, of course it
Yes.
did. Love it. Okay, what is your favorite outer season?
My favorite outer season. I like them all, but I would say the first thing that came to mind was winter.
Very interesting. Now, what about your favorite inner season?
Same.
Same. Oh, I love that. Oh, I
Yes.
can't wait to dive into that later. Okay, now your favorite aspect of feminine energy.
My favorite aspect, I would say flow, intuition.
Yep. Okay, what about masculine energy?
I like the first word that came to mind were go getter.
Okay,
Could
yep.
that be an aspect? Yeah.
Yes, I think that's a part of action, really,
Yeah.
bringing things to life. Okay, what about your favorite ritual?
I really like doing something that a friend of mine calls inspired walks. That for
Mm,
me is a ritual. It's just setting off and just letting your intuition guide you. So not your rational mind, but your intuition. So say you see, I don't know, a color and that calls you, so you go there, and then the next turn you decide with your feelings basically.
and we did that one day in Hyde Park, I
Yeah.
think. We did. That was really fun. I love that. Inspired walks.
Yes.
Okay, now you've also done Embrace Your Feminine Essence. So what was your favorite module?
The one on your period and how it was so powerful and the creation that came from it.
Okay, yeah, so all about
Definitely.
our cycles. Okay,
Yes.
living as a cyclical being. All right, and then this one might throw you off a little bit, but just whatever first comes up. So, what did you want to be when you were a kid? Like when you were thinking about what did you want to be when you grow up? What would the answer have been?
This is a really funny one because I've got to go through the first thing that came to mind. I really liked our cleaning lady and I wanted to be a cleaning lady.
Oh, I love it. What was it about it?
Because she was so nice. She used to like make my doll's bed and put so much attention into everything, and I just really liked her, so I wanted to be a cleaning lady.
Isn't that amazing the way that people who we just like influence us?
Yes.
That's fascinating. Oh, we could go in so many directions with that. But okay, now let me ask my usual first question, which is just to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're currently creating in the world today.
Yeah, so I'm Danny. I was born in the UK, but then when I was 2 years old, my parents moved to France. So I grew up in the south of France, hence the accent. My mother is Australian, so we have that in common.
Yep.
And my father is part Swiss German. So we are a family of, travelers.
Yeah.
And I moved to the UK about 2 years ago, after having lived in Barcelona for a long time. And so currently, as you said in the beginning, I'm a BioNeuroEmotion practitioner, which is a method I am so passionate about. I'm also a nerd and I love reading and finding out about lots of stuff and sharing that with people. So I feel that's part of what I create as well. And yeah, I really strive to live a more conscious, coherent life. And through the things I do, I try to help others do the same. And that's really what I hope to create today.
I love that. Conscious and coherent. I was just writing that down because I love the way that you say that. So, and also I'm a nerd too, so
Yay.
I feel you there. And so when did you move to Spain? How long ago was that?
So I moved to Spain in 2004.
Okay, so you were there for over 10 years.
Yes.
Okay. Amazing. I love all those influences, all the different cultural influences on your life. That would be so amazing. That was something that I always wished growing up that I had that, because I was always in Australia. So whenever I meet someone who's had all of those, very multicultural family, I just think that is so cool. So there's so much to be learned. And that's why I love Europe, because there's so much so close to you, so many different cultures and history, all in a very easy distance, and you just learn something every single place you go to.
Yeah, for sure. But also, when you were saying that, something came to mind. You know how you were saying at the beginning that my chakra was a root chakra?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, my family is all over the place. There's no real roots.
Yes.
So I thought that was quite interesting when you said that. And yeah.
Yes. Well, what's interesting is the root chakra. When I think of it as that's your center. That's like your foundation inside. So what's interesting is I think we put a lot of importance in where we live and that being rooted. But isn't it interesting to think about how you can feel that sense of foundation and center no matter where you are, because it's really from inside.
Yes, I love that. And that is so true.
Yeah. Oh, cool. All right. So tell us, what is BNE?
Okay, so BNE, so the name is BioNeuroEmotion, which is a complete mouthful, but it means, so it's biology, neuroscience, and emotion. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful method, which I love because it has basically had such an impact on my own life. And it mainly works on perception, by helping people bring their unconscious blocks to awareness, right? Through a series of methods. And it's a humanist method above all. So it's a science and a philosophy, a stance and a philosophy that advocates the fact that people are responsible for making themselves better, or for, helping themselves. Mm-hmm. Humanist means a lot more things, but I think that is one, in a nutshell, what BioNeuroEmotion would be about as well.
So that's very empowering then.
Yes.
Because it's putting the power in our hands to change our life, I guess, our reality, the way we feel.
Exactly. That's what it advocates, basically. It's not what happens to you that's important, but how you perceive it and what, from that perception, you do with that. So I think it's a little bit like the concept of acting rather than reacting. And you can do that when you have the right tools, right?
Yeah. And when you have the power.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. And so when you say that there's a number of different modalities that it looks at, what are they? So biology, neuroscience, and emotions, and then anything else?
Yes. So the founder, I think I can go a little bit into the history of the founder,
go for it.
I think it's quite interesting to know. He was an engineer, basically, so he comes from science. And when he was 40, he decided to study psychology. His name is Enric Corbera, and he's from Spain, next to Barcelona. And basically, he is another one of those nerds. He loves reading, and he's very interested in philosophy, science, metaphysics. And so he designed a method that really draws on different disciplines, whether they be scientific or philosophical or humanist. So I can give you a couple of them. There's a lot, but the main ones. So there would be, for example, obviously biology, looking at biology and epigenetics, looking on how your environment can shape your biology. So we can go into that maybe a little bit later, deeper into that. Psychoanalytics as well. So mainly the school of Carl Jung and Freud, looking at how the unconscious mind works, and all those different aspects. And then what else? It also looks at how your family or your family tree can affect your life as well. So through something that's called psycho-genealogy. And it was also a term that was, I think it was brought about by Carl Jung as well.
Okay.
And then further studied by other people. And yeah, it looks at how there have been studies, for example, showing how in one same family you have an accident that repeats itself at the same date, generation after generation, and how that is also linked to the unconscious. So that would be another branch. I think I've said them.
That's
Much.
fascinating. So, and what about quantum
Yes,
physics?
yes. Obviously, all that draws into quantum physics as well.
Mm.
Yes, and authors and metaphysicists as well, such as Bruce Lipton, who's a biologist, and then Dr. Robert Lancer with consciousness and the study of consciousness and
Okay.
quantum physics and all of that. Yeah, a lot of that. Yes.
And what about the spiritual side, the metaphysical?
Yes. Well, that's a big part of it as well, because Enrique Corbera is also a teacher of A Course in Miracles,
Mm.
which, for the people who don't know, A Course in Miracles is a metaphysical text. It's a self-taught course. And a miracle, for example, is a change in perception.
Mm.
And BNE works on changing perception. So yes, one of the foundational pillars, I'd say, of BNE is A Course in Miracles for sure. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. And see, this is why I love talking to you, Danielle, because you've just got so much knowledge in all of these diverse areas, but this is the point. Like they're all linked together in some way, and it's so amazing when we can look at these different disciplines, as you said, and see how they all meet. And that's what's so amazing at the moment, that science and the metaphysical or the spiritual have now had all of these links being confirmed through things like quantum physics. And so it's just really exciting. So it's not these two completely disparate and conflicting theories anymore. It is all supporting one another, which is really interesting. So interesting.
It is, and we live in such a great period of time for that, because that's what's happening. Science and the spiritual or the metaphysical is really merging together. And you said it really well. It's all about balance. And if you look at nature, that's what it's about. It's about balance, and balancing the science aspect and the other aspects that are less tangible, maybe, right? And how your body functions as well. Your mind, your body, and your spirit, they're all connected. And science is finding that out as well nowadays. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm just thinking, this is what, as well, when people are talking, including myself, about masculine and feminine energy, it is all about balance, and it's all about we are both. We don't have to choose one or the other. And to actually create and get things done in our life, we have to have both. And we're a part of nature, aren't we?
Exactly. Yes. Even though for a long, long time, a lot of us thought that we are above it, but we are not, right?
Oh,
We're part of
yes.
it.
Yes. We're all connected. We're part of this universe.
Exactly. And that's a humbling thought, but also it gives us so much more power than we think we have.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us about your story. What led you to BNE? And I'm going to say BNE because every time I say BioNeuroEmotion, I end up saying something else.
I totally understand you. Yeah, so yes, my story. And I think that is a really important part of why I studied BNE, because it just really has such an impact on me. So I'm going to go way back, because it started a long time ago. I suffered from depression from a very young age, right? And it's quite something that kind of always puzzled me, because from the outside, I had a really nice life and everything was going really well. But inside, I just felt really sad, right? And I had this real crushing feeling inside. And when I was 19, I was at university, again, having a great time from the outside. And I was put on antidepressants and diagnosed with depression. So I'm very lucky to have the family I have who are very conscious about those things. And so, antidepressants was never a long-term solution. So I went to therapy, got off them, and it just really led me onto a path, which is a path that is continuing now, where I just had to look for answers. I just wanted to understand why this was happening to me, or why I felt that way. So I did a lot of things, amongst them feeling sorry for myself, numbing, all of those things. I did different types of therapies. I learned how Reiki, many different things, and all of those things helped. Right? They all helped get me to a certain point in my life. But on a deeper level, I felt that they were all a bit of a crutch. Like I was always looking for answers outside of me. I needed someone to save me, kind of thing. And it's only when I really understood that I had to take responsibility for what was happening to me and stop blaming external circumstances that my life started to change. And one of the moments that happened was when I started to meditate. I went to a Vipassana retreat, which is a 10-day silent meditation retreat, which is beautiful. I recommend it to anybody. It's a donation-based center. And there I really got the feeling of what it was like to look for answers inside of you. And I got a glimpse of what it was like to really be able to find my own answers in a way, by observing my body and observing my sensations. And in one of those retreats, I got to know a couple, friends of mine who are a couple. And the girl told me about Enrico Vera. We were just talking about in a conversation. And maybe, I think it was shortly later, I was at home sick. I think I had had an argument with my sister and I was feeling sorry for myself. And I decided to look him up on YouTube, and I watched a video and then another one. And I spent the whole day watching YouTube videos, his conferences. And my soul was loving it. It was like, this is for me. The next morning I made a phone call and I booked an appointment. And I went for the appointment because at that point in my life, I kind of had learned to live with that sadness. I numbed it so well that it was kind of a comfort zone. I wasn't really that aware that it was so debilitating at that point in my life. And I went for a completely other reason. I went because of the fact that I had difficulty keeping a relationship together. And we addressed that. And during the session, we got to the point where we were talking about my family tree. And the sadness issue came up. And the practitioner said to me, he was like, so since when have you been feeling this way? And you know what? I didn't know. I was unable to answer him, since when? And he said to me, he was like, have you been feeling that way all your life? And I was like, yeah, actually I have. And he looked at me and he said, that is not your sadness. That is your grandma's sadness. That is your mom's sadness. And it's giving me goosebumps just now talking about it, because something in me went, it was just like a light bulb, even if it's something that it's on another level of knowing, right? And effectively, my mom's mom was a very depressed person at a point in her life. And at that point in time, they didn't really know how to handle mental illness. So she was in and out of hospitals, and she also attempted to take her own life. So she was a very depressed person. And so, yeah, and the thing is, when we talked about all that and I became aware, this was like a light bulb in me, and I walked out of that session and I have never felt that crushing feeling ever again. It was just something had lifted off me. I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah. That's so powerful.
Yeah, it is. And at the same time, now my rational mind is coming in, and the science can explain that, right? Through epigenetics and all of that. But yes, it's it was a very powerful moment for me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what do you mean that the science can explain that?
So so there's a science of epigenetics right now that explains how your environment shapes your biology. And they looked into basically, because before there was people thought that your genes were predetermined and that's what your genes were. So if you had a gene for that, you would get that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now science is proving that actually what is important is not the DNA. The DNA is important, but it's the protein around the DNA that used to be called junk DNA by scientists when they didn't know what it was, that acts as like a switch.
Okay.
So it turns the genes on or off. So you might have, say, a gene for cancer.
Yeah.
But if your environment, sort of you in the right environment, that gene might never be turned on.
Okay.
So that affects at a biological level. So, for example, you can take two twins, like identical twins. They'll be born identical, and they'll follow them all their life. But then as they grow older, their environment will change. What they eat, what chemicals they're exposed to, etc. So when they actually get into adulthood, they start looking differently. One might become obese, the other one might not.
Yeah. So
that shows how the environment impacts your biology or your makeup. And then there's another stream, another branch, right?
Yep.
Called behavioral epigenetics, which shows how your actual thoughts, beliefs can affect your biology as well. So has a play on that. And in that comes what you inherit, the inherited patterns of thoughts and beliefs, etc. So you can inherit a depression, for example. Does that make sense? Is it clear enough?
It does. So you can inherit these thoughts and beliefs, and you can also learn them throughout your lifetime.
Exactly. Yeah. And obviously sorry.
And that's behavioral epigenetics.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's it. So I don't know. I can give an example. For example, they've done that with rats, where you have, I think it's McGill University in Canada that did this experiment, where you have two groups of rats, and then you have the good quote unquote mothers and the bad quote unquote mothers. So the good mothers are the ones that groom their pups a lot. They lick them a lot.
Okay.
And the bad mothers don't so much. So what they realized was that the pups that had been groomed a lot were much more resilient to stress. They were much more relaxed in their adult life. And then they had pups that they, in their turn, leaked and groomed, etc. And the other side, the ones that, that weren't groomed that much, were very stressed adults. And then what they did to show that it was the environment and not so much the genes that affected it all, they swapped. So they took the bad mothers and the good mothers and their pups, and they switched the pups.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is that the pups that went to the good mother that came from the bad mother, when they grew up, were much more resilient to stress. And then they passed that on to their children. And then the opposite happened with the other ones.
Wow. So it was that. So then it was more important about what was happening in that moment.
Yes, rather than the actual
DNA. Wow, yes, that's incredible. So, and that's also so interesting because that's that nurturing that the mother was giving them, which is feminine energy.
Exactly. Yes, that's true. Yes. And that can happen. So that's what studies are showing, is that doesn't happen only at birth. Then whatever the mother is going through when the baby's in the womb, that can make up for up to 50% of the baby's personality when it comes out. And then also studies on sperm, male sperm, are showing that what happens to the father in his childhood or adolescence can also affect his children and the way they tackle stress or whatever when they grow up as well. So and then obviously that goes into your grandma and your grandparents.
Keeps going back.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what your father was experiencing during his adolescence can have an impact on you because it's passed down, and
exactly
the way that you cope with stress and whatever else.
Yes.
This is fascinating. So, okay, so epigenetics then, it's interesting because the other stream of epigenetics that you were first talking about, when they spoke about environment, it seems like this behavioral epigenetics has broadened the term of environment to also include, your inner environment, your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, plus what's happening on the outside, as in what you consume and what's in your physical environment.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So my first question for you with your story, which is so powerful, is how did the person you saw know that it was your grandmother's depression? Okay,
so there's a whole, so BioNeuroEmotion is a bit veered away from the linear way of sort of, this is for this, but there is a way of kind of knowing in your family who you resonate with more in terms of what information is passed down to you or not, right?
Okay.
And at that time when I went, they made you do your family tree.
Okay.
With the birth dates and death dates, etc. And so you can know from there on who you resonate with most. So that was probably a clue for him. But yeah, I think it's a bit complex actually to explain it all that way. But there's for example, I would recommend an author that's called Anne Schutzenberger.
Mm-hmm.
And her book is The Ancestor Syndrome. And she explains all of that really well.
Okay.
How you can look into, who is more likely, you are more likely to have inherited from.
Okay. And so at that time when you saw the practitioner, your grandmother was like, she was alive and in your life, or she wasn't at that stage.
No,
okay. So I'm sorry, but so I just want to make this clear to someone listening that it doesn't have to be someone who's actually in your life right now that when they pass these things down, it's just pass down your ancestral line.
Yes, definitely. And actually it's because how the unconscious mind works. So if someone in your tree has had something that they've not been able to overcome, right? So a trauma or something they haven't overcome, then it will be passed down to they say up to the third or fourth generation. Usually it skips a generation. And the reason for that is that it's a survival reason. It's a survival of the species reason, because it's passed down so it is overcome and transcended. For the family to grow stronger, right? Because otherwise, if we were a blank page and these experiences just came at us with no information before, then we wouldn't know how to deal with them. And actually, my grandmother, because you don't only inherit the bad, you inherit the good as well. That's a good thing.
Good point.
So my grandmother, for me, I mean, she has such a great place in my heart because, I also inherited her strength. She was an extremely strong woman.
And you'd have to be so strong to be going through all of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and she gave me the strength, and and part of the knowledge that she had at that time was passed down to me as well. So yeah,
okay.
And actually, I just felt compelled to say that, but I found out not so long ago that my grandmother, the time that she tried to take her own life, corresponded, we were the same age than when I graduated from BioNeuroEmotion.
Oh.
So it's just beautiful because
that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible because that's what you did to overcome. That's what you used to overcome this.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's just like so amazing. I have chills. And what's so interesting about what you've just shared there is that the survival reason, the survival of the fittest, it also gives more like meaning and purpose to these experiences we have in our life, to know that this suffering that we might be experiencing there's something to learn from it and to overcome. Like the lesson is to overcome it. And that's shifting immediately you into the more of not being a victim into being empowered, because it's taking back control of your life and not feeling a victim to all these things happening, but knowing that this is something that is happening in your life so that you can get stronger and move forward.
Exactly. Yes. And when you do have that knowing, when some unconscious information is sort of brought to your awareness, then it's a kind of knowing that it's an understanding. So that deep understanding means that there's no blame, there's no, it's all about, oh, this is why it happened, right? And so it frees you to be able to look at the problem or whatever is happening to you from another perspective.
Yes, and it's almost like relief, because so when you have this awareness and you have that shift, you're going to feel lighter because you've been set free from something. Whereas sometimes, probably before, you would have felt more constrained and contracted, your whole, sort of carrying this burden around with you that wasn't yours. And so when you had that awareness, that shift in perception, because I'm just thinking how do people, when you talk about this sense of knowing, how people know what that sense of knowing, what it feels like to experience it.
Yes, that's a good question. And actually, I feel it's something you can't explain. It's what we were talking about before the call. It's like we were saying how your mind, there's two parts in there's your limbic brain, right, which is the oldest part of your brain. And then there's your rational brain, which is the neocortex, right? And the limbic brain, the oldest part, does not know language. It only knows feelings, emotions, etc. So that's why when something happens to you and you have that sense of knowing, because we've all had it, we've all had a sense of knowing, and I'm going to do this. And people are saying, but why are you going to do this? And you can't explain it to them. And it's completely irrational, but you're going to do it anyway. That's the best way I can explain it, because it comes from that part of the brain.
Yeah, so Danny and I were just talking about, we've got our gut brain, we've got our heart, and we've got our brain, which is how I described it. And so the gut brain and the heart communicate through sensations, and we are left with our mind or our brain to then try and articulate what it is that's being communicated to us through the heart or through the gut brain. And this is where the difficulty lies, because as you mentioned, it's like they're speaking another language.
Yes.
And we've got to get to know what that other language is without having any reference book to go to.
Yes, totally.
And well, this is just amazing, because what we're also talking about here is intuition. And this is why when people ask about, well, how do I know if it's my intuition, or how can I connect to my intuition? And intuition is an aspect of feminine energy because it's subjective, and that's one of the key characteristics of feminine energy. It's something that has to be experienced by you, because it's through your own sensations and through what I like to term your own intuitive library that you get to figure out. It's like you get to decode the messages, but you've got to do it for yourself, because you're relying on something that your brain can't necessarily articulate into words, because it is using two different languages. It's almost like when I don't speak any other languages. I wish I did. But it's almost like when, well, Danny, you're a great example because you speak a number of different languages, but I'm sure you've had those situations where in, say, Spanish or French, you're trying to translate something into English even, and there isn't a word that is equivalent in English or vice versa. And so how do you explain that?
Yeah, that's really good. Yes. And actually that's it, because every single culture has a different perception of their world. So they will have a different language to describe that perception. So I feel it's really good what you're saying. Actually, I think it's the Inuits. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Inuits, the ones that they live in Alaska.
Okay.
And they have 11 different words, I think, to describe snow.
Oh, wow.
So that just shows you that's their perception of their world, and that's conveyed through language. Yeah, completely. And another thing you said that I really liked was only you can explain, only you know. And when you have a shift in perception, that's what happens. You just know. And people who come out of a session and say, so what do I have to do now? That means they haven't had a shift in perception. Because if you've had your shift in perception and you just understand what the next steps are by yourself, you see what I mean? So,
yeah,
I feel that's important to say, because,
and that's why it's a sense of knowing.
It's a sense of knowing. And actually, science is showing they can do a scan, a brain scan, and when someone has a cognitive shift, a positive cognitive shift, which is a shift in perception, it can be seen in your brain 2 hours after. Sort of there's disconnections and connections with your neural pathways changes,
Okay.
So it's quite powerful.
your brain literally changes through a shift in perception.
Yes, because you're changing your beliefs, your belief system, basically. From, in my case, maybe we could say it was, why is this happening to me, and no understanding, complete dark, to, that was just a little shift. Well, it was a big shift for me, actually. But yeah.
And so this brings me to a great topic then, because what we're really talking about here is then the unconscious and the conscious. Yes. So could you just explain to us a little bit about what the unconscious is compared to the conscious?
Yes. That's that's a good question as well. So
I know.
So basically, the way we see it in BioNeuroEmotion, so the conscious mind is everything you do that you are aware of, your thoughts, your actions that you're aware of. And your unconscious mind, so that represents 5%. They've calculated it, don't ask me how, sorry, but they have. So it's 5% generally. And your unconscious mind represents 95% of what you do.
Yep.
So basically 95% of what you do is unconscious. So, like for example, if you had to remember how to breathe consciously, it will probably be a lot of work. So that's your unconscious mind that does it. And your unconscious mind has a very different way of perceiving the world than your conscious mind does. Your conscious mind is your rational part. And your unconscious mind, first of all, so it has a number of characteristics. First of all, it doesn't understand duality. For it, everything is interconnected. So the other person does not exist for your unconscious mind, right? So for your conscious mind, of course, the other person is there. But for your unconscious mind, the other person is just a projection of you, right? Then another characteristic is that it's timeless. It lives in the present. It doesn't understand past or future. Everything that happens is happening now, which is great from a therapeutical point of view, because with the right tools and the right training, you can take someone back to a difficult experience and help them shift their perception and their way of seeing that experience in the present. So that's really, that because you do RTT, and we can talk. No, it's a little bit.
Theta healing, and I've done RTT. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, well, that's good to point out there, which is that hypnosis is something that that's also one of the other disciplines that you look at in BNE, right?
Yes, we do. We use Ericksonian hypnosis. So that would be to help people make that shift as well.
Yes.
And see things differently. So that's one of the characteristics. I think there are two more that I think are important for people to understand. Another one is that it's innocent, your unconscious mind. It doesn't judge. It doesn't know what's good or bad. It's like you have to think about it like if it was a child, It doesn't judge anything. It just receives information and processes it. That's all it does.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
It's so interesting. I always think that that's such an interesting term that we use, innocent, for not judging.
yes. Do you think so?
Yeah, I don't know why, but I guess because it's like childlike, so that's what we're talking about, doesn't sort of have an opinion. It's just that's what's happened and that's it.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think that was important that you explained what innocent means.
Yes, because we can see it as an innocent and victim. Is that it? Innocent. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Right.
Yeah,
I see what you mean. Yeah. I wouldn't have thought about that. Yeah, you're right. And also another thing that's really important is that for the unconscious mind, everything is real. So everything you're thinking of, every moment of your life is real. It's happening to you. So that's why, for example, if you're watching a scary movie, even though for your conscious mind it's like just a scary movie, your body, your heartbeat is going to be, going AY.
Yes.
And so because it's your unconscious mind that's reacting as if it were real. So that's why a tip for your listeners: I would not watch any scary movie or the news while you're eating your dinner, for example, because it's just sending conflicting signals to your.
Okay. Well, this makes so much sense to me, and this is so I really don't like watching scary movies ever, and I try to avoid the news as much as possible on the basis that if there's anything that I need to know about, I'm going to hear about it through someone. And because of the stress that this puts my body under, like internalizing that stress of having, especially some of the programs that we have available to us today, some of them are really distressful and very traumatizing. And I've always felt just intuitively that this is not good for me. And so that makes sense when you say that everything is real for the unconscious, that it would be having an impact on my body, even though it's not me experiencing it. And I can even feel this way when I hear other people's stories about something really horrible that's happened to them. My mum was always someone that would be like, okay, I don't want the details. I don't want to know. And I never understood why. But as I've gotten older, I've felt the same way, that I would prefer not to know or to see these details, because I feel like it does impact me, even though I'm not experiencing it myself. And this makes sense by these characteristics of the unconscious.
Yes, that's how it works. Yeah, it's like it's happening to you, and that's why people, can also empathize so much with somebody that they will fall ill at the same time. There's these things that happen. Then there's a point that you made, and I think that's something which also with the change in perception comes, like there's this big thing nowadays saying, oh no, don't watch the news. And that's something that I kind of also hustling with it. I think that's my not have an issue, but I feel Marianne Williamson says something that's very good about that, which is like you need to look through, right? And it's like being aware and looking through it from a different conscious awareness. Does that make sense? And sorry.
I was just going to say, is this like, okay, say with people who describe themselves as an empath.
Yeah.
They, pick up on other people's energy, but there can be some protection, like they're taking on the other person's energy. So with the news, if you watch the news and you're allowing yourself to become a victim to it,
yes,
then then it's going to have a different impact on you than if you recognize that this is not you.
Yes, from a certain.
I don't know if I'm explaining this.
You are really well. Yeah, no, it's just a question that I have in my mind too, because I am also struggling with that. Right? I'm like, can we completely just ignore it and be like it's not happening? But we can't really do that, can't we? We have to also look at what's happening, but from another perspective, from a place of groundedness. That's what you were saying before, the groundedness. So it's like somebody that's an empath who says that they're an empath, what they're doing is that they're going to the level of the problem. It's like they're getting sick with the person that's sick, which is not really
Yeah.
helping the person that's sick. I
No,
right?
no. Yep. It's not helping them out of the ditch, as Jess talks
Yeah,
about.
it's just that. It's just actually that I took that from Jess. She says it really well, doesn't she? About so yeah. That's just a little question that I have as well with the whole news thing, because that's good.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one to think about. I think that because the unconscious is constantly absorbing, or at least the subconscious absorbing
Yeah.
things that we're not aware of, then if we're constantly watching scary shows or scary TV, or constantly like the news, the sort of general news programs that we have wherever you are in the world, that is just like all about the most horrible crimes that are going on, I feel like that you can't help but have a negative impact from being exposed to all of that, no matter what you do. But so I think that it's about balance again.
Yes. Yeah, that's
yes,
it.
it's about balance,
It
isn't
is.
it? Because
Yeah.
you want to be aware of what's going on so that you can help change things.
Yeah.
You need awareness to be able to change things. But then it's like with any issue you have, if you, as soon as you attach too much to it, and it amplifies the problem, rather than being able to simply see it and then choose to do something differently. So you have to have like some level of separation there so that you can do that.
Yes, that's beautiful the way you said it, because, and it's true, and it's again about sort of bringing the unconscious to the awareness, right? It's again the same thing, and that's what you're saying, is that if you're watching the news all the time, you don't need to have it all the time there. It's not going to help you. But yeah, from that place of balance, then you can do something about it. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Hello, my beautiful friend. It's Letitia here. I'm just taking a moment to interrupt this beautiful conversation with Dannie Reeve. Don't worry, there's still so much more to come. I wanted to take this time to remind you of my offer to join my online program, Embrace Your Feminine Essence. Embrace Your Feminine Essence is an 8-module online course that takes you through all the different aspects to feminine energy. We cover trust, surrender, allowing, receiving, creating space, intuition, flow, creativity, our menstrual cycle, and how we can integrate and use all of these different aspects to feminine energy and more with our masculine energy, so that we're able to create a lifestyle that allows us to thrive. I invite you to check out the page on my website at letitiaringe.com/EYFE and come and join us. We would love to have you there. Okay, now let's dive back into the conversation with Dannie Reeve. Okay, so you've just explained the conscious and the unconscious, and we've gone on a bit of a side topic there, but which I think is useful though, because it's talking about the unconscious. So you're looking to make then, as far as I'm aware, aspects that are in the unconscious, conscious.
Yes.
So this is like with your situation, it wasn't your depression and you were consciously aware of your depression. It was your grandmother's, and that was something that was actually from your unconscious.
Yes. It was from my unconscious, and it's the emotion that was connecting my conscious to my unconscious.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's...
Can you explain more about that? About the emotion?
Yes, because I feel that's a big part of the game, right? The emotion. So your emotions basically connect your mind and your body, right? So, for example, if you are in the jungle and there's a lion running after you, you're going to perceive the lion, and then so your mind is going to perceive the lion, and then it's going to trigger fear, and it's the fear that's going to make your body run.
And the fear is the emotion.
And the fear is the emotion. Yeah.
So with the emotional component, so why does the emotion why is that linking the unconscious with the conscious?
So your emotion also anchors memories as well, right? So your unconscious mind, what it does is that it processes every single piece of information you receive in your life, right? So anything that happens to you. And when you have, say, a traumatic experience, you're going to have an emotion that's going to be linked to that experience, right? And so when in your daily life, so maybe say you felt unconscious during that experience, even though you're unconscious, your unconscious mind is just registering everything, the noises, the smells, everything, right? So when you recover from that experience and say like a few years down the line, you end up being in a place and then there's the same noise or the same smell, that will trigger an unconscious response in you. So that's a little bit, I suppose, I don't know much about it, but I suppose that's what post-traumatic disorder as well comes from, right?
Yeah, yes.
So, but and that will trigger an emotion. Yeah, and
which is probably similar to the one you experienced.
Which is the same than the one you experienced.
The same, so it is always the same?
Yeah, it's the same, but if you have, so you have 5 basic emotions. I'm going to try and explain this. You have 5 basic emotions that are processed. So you have your older part of the brain, which is your limbic brain, and which is also your unconscious, and that deals with 5 basic emotions, which would be fear, anger, disgust, sadness, and joy. Yeah, and then those emotions make you act. But when you are in a situation when you need to suppress, because your rational mind, which is the other part of your brain, has the power to sort of filter those emotions or change them, dampen them. Like say you are in a situation where there's some anger coming up, but it's not appropriate to be angry. Yeah. Your rational mind is going to dampen that, and you're going to get another series of feelings and emotions. Yeah.
Ah, wow. Okay.
So if something is not processed, the basic emotion is still wanting to be expressed, and it's not being expressed.
Oh my gosh, yes. And this is what I've been exploring a lot about recently, and well, for a long time, but the self-expression and the emotional intelligence being so if the unconscious feeling is anger, like you say, but your conscious or your rational mind is saying, okay, let's be frustrated instead, or sad, or sad. So then that anger is still not being expressed, and so it's in your body still. Yes. It's affecting you in some way.
Exactly. And because your unconscious mind has more power, not because it's more powerful, but because it does 95% of everything you do. It's going to try and find situations where you can express that emotion.
Okay.
Yeah. Until you kind of understand what it's all about and you are able to see it from a different perspective and change that emotion. But you need to change the core emotion. You see, does that make sense?
Okay. Yes. And so does that mean that that it's recommended to express the emotion?
Yes.
And transmute
it. Exactly. Yes. And transmute it. Yeah.
Because I can't remember where I heard this, but I was listening to something. Actually, it might have been John Gray's Beyond Mars and Venus. And if it wasn't, I'm sorry about that. But he was talking about, for men, it's socially acceptable to be angry. So they would express, when they would, with all of this about self-expression, when they're being encouraged to express, what they were missing out was the transmuting that into like love, into a more, more positive sort of experience. And that was key because it was leaving all of these men stuck in anger.
Yes. And it adds on to what we were saying, right? Because at the end of the day, it's also all about perception. How you perceive a certain something that is going to happen to you is going to result in an emotion or another emotion. So in order to change that emotion, you need to change your perception of what has happened. It doesn't mean that what has happened has not happened, it doesn't mean, but it's all for you to move forward, right?
Yes.
And something comes to mind as well, because sometimes that emotion in your unconscious mind is, again, passed down by, experiences from your family and things that have been lived. So, for example, I'm just going to put a practical example. Hopefully it's tying in with all of this. Say somebody really wants to have a baby and conceive. And even though their body is completely fine, their partner is completely fine, they just can't, right? I think this was a story actually that Enrique told us about, but I don't know if I'm not going to be saying it exactly the way it was. But so this lady, she just couldn't conceive, right? And she, looking back into her family history, she realized that there was a whole story of danger around conceiving. So either the mother or the grandma had many children and hadn't been able to live her life because of it, or something like that. There was a family history of children equal not good for our unconscious mind, right? So there's an emotion attached to that as well. There's a trauma of a grandma and everything. Anyway, when she became aware of that, she was like, oh my God, she was aware. But the key thing is accepting. As you say, there's knowing of, oh, so that is why there's a purpose, because my unconscious mind is trying to protect me, because for it, me having a child would mean danger for me. And it's accepting from a place, as what you said, of non-attachment to the result. It doesn't mean that means that I'm going to have children, but I am not angry anymore. I'm just accepting the situation.
Yeah, because then you're not reacting to and attaching to the emotion.
Exactly. But there's an understanding of why this is happening to you, what this is happening to you for, not why this is happening to you. That's very different, right?
Yeah. It's not ignorance. It's you're fully aware of why.
Yeah, there's a purpose behind that, a survival purpose. And anyway, in this particular story, she actually wrote a whole letter to Enrique because 3 weeks later she fell pregnant. But he said the key was that she understood and she accepted her situation as it was. And that's why she allowed the unfolding afterwards. If she had been like, oh my God, now I know, now I can fall pregnant, she would be putting resistance to that as well. So that's just another kind of, nugget, but yeah.
Okay. And why would there be resistance?
Resistance because you want the outcome.
You're placing too much importance on it. So it's like
on the outcome. So it's a form of resistance. Yeah, it's a form of resistance, right? When you're so attached to the outcome. Yeah. But I hope that makes sense with the whole, unconscious and how that ties into that.
Yeah. So that's how it connects it. So okay, in theta healing, in RTT, in other types of hypnotherapy, and I think in B&E, but let me know if this is wrong. So then that's why they take you back to the event, where the environment that the emotion was created in, the initial event. Yes.
That is so important.
Okay. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that from a B&E perspective?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I suppose it will tie in with the theta healing perspective as well, right? Because, I mean, as we say, all paths lead to Rome. Yep. And there's just so many ways of getting to the same place.
Absolutely. Yep.
But yes, what we're interested in is the emotional environment in which a particular conflictive pattern happens, or has, we call it the seed moment. Yeah, that's so we're going to try and take you back to that seed moment. So whether it be a physical symptom, or whether it be a pattern in your life, or something that you're overwhelmed about.
Okay.
And we will take you so through a series. First of all, it's really been very objective and looking at different scenes, because there's a seed moment, but then that seed moment leads to many more different scenes in your life that we can explore as well along the way, to kind of see objectively with an innocent mind. So that is the role of the practitioner, is to have that innocent mind and to really keep the client in an objective framework. Only description, no interpretation, because we're going to look for the story behind the story that you're telling yourself, which is not that story, because otherwise you wouldn't have that pattern reoccurring and your symptom would not be the way it is. Okay? So that story lies in the emotional environment, in that seed moment, which usually goes back to childhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what if like with you, that it was passed down? So what if when it's passed down through an ancestor, how does, you don't need to go back to the emotional environment in which the original emotion was created then? Just simply having the awareness that it's not yours is enough?
No, I mean, during that can be, because awareness like really makes it, very powerful. But in order to get there, I went back through different scenes to understand, because we need to understand objectively and be able to, draw that conclusion. So yeah, we'll be taken back to different moments, and where does that originate? Okay. Definitely. Does that answer your question?
Well, no, something I was thinking of, and I don't know what the answer is, but for like you might not know this either, but for hypnotherapy and maybe even RTT, as far as I know, the furthest you can go back is only for your own experience. So it could be even in the womb, when you're in the womb. But what if but you can't ever go back into like your grandmother's.
Okay. Yeah. I see. I see. Sorry. I think that's a really good point, actually. And what came to me is, I can't remember. He's I think the person who created the hologram concept.
Okay. Yep.
I can't remember his name. Forgive me, but I can't remember. Gabor.
Okay.
I think it's Dennis Gabor.
Okay.
But anyway, by creating that, he says, the part is in everything and everything is in the part. So you have to remember that your family has its own collective unconsciousness.
Yep.
Right? And all that information is in you as well.
Okay.
You have all that information in you. So even though, because, sometimes people come to a session and they're adopted, for example. So it doesn't matter, because the information that they're going to be having with the people around them, their friends, their adoptive parents, is going to resonate with the information that's coming down and is being passed down to them, because that's how nature works in a nutshell. Do you understand what I mean? It's like a holographic, it's just a holographic, how do you say?
Reflection?
Yeah, maybe a holographic reflection. So that's why it's very interesting to see what are your friends, what information they're sending out to you, because that chances are, or very likely, to be the same information that comes from your family. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why, even by knowing what you've gone through, we can kind of find that out.
Okay, yeah. So this is like, we can also look at this in how you were talking about before, that the unconscious doesn't distinguish between people. So we're all connected. So, and we've spoken about this before, like if you've got someone in your life who's triggering you, that's because there's something there that's being mirrored back at you to learn.
Exactly.
In your own life.
Yes, and you've nailed it. That's because of the unconscious doesn't distinguish between you and me. So,
okay. Or time, which is why it's taking on our ancestors as if it's our own.
Exactly. That's it. And actually, I feel it's really good that you brought up the mirror effect, because that's a big part of what we try to, sort of the philosophy behind it. Because, BioNeuroEmotion is a philosophy and a way of living life, seeing life, or perceiving life would be more. So when you look at somebody, you don't see them as they are, but as you project them to be. So say you take the president of the United States, for example.
Yep.
Well, some people will see a series of characteristics in him, and some others will see the exact opposite characteristics. Yep. But he's still sending out the same message to everybody. So what you see in somebody else says more about you than that other person. Yeah. So I don't know if I can give an example to make it a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
So for example, say that you are in a situation where you have a conflicted relationship with your boss, right? And you perceive that your boss is disrespecting you, which may well be the case. We're not saying that that's not happening.
Yeah.
But your so from a dual perspective, or from the other person separated from me, it's, oh, she is disrespecting me. How can she be so selfish? And in BioNeuroEmotion, we talk not to talk about other people, but about ourselves in relation to other people, which means that you look. So if from the victim perception, which is, oh, she's, disrespecting me, which I say may well be the case, you handing all your power over to her. She is the one that is responsible for everything. Right? So you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But when you start seeing her as an extension of you, the question would be rather, how am I disrespecting myself through her? And you understand that nobody disrespects you if you don't allow them to. Yeah. So that puts the responsibility on you, and you start thinking, okay, what can I do to respect myself better? What can I do? So, it might be that the situation is not that bad, and just by changing your perception, you get to see her in a different light.
Yeah.
Or it means walking away from that job, but from a different place, not from a place of victimhood, but from a place of, okay, I have learned my lesson. I am no longer going to disrespect myself, and I'm going to find ways to respect myself better. Yeah. And that gives you a lot of power in life.
Absolutely. Because it could also just be putting in some sort of healthy boundary. That's another alternative. And also, I think what's important, and this is linking it back to A Course in Miracles, which is just so fascinating for me to hear what B&E is all about, like your interpretation, because I love A Course in Miracles and I can just see it present in everything that you're talking about, because it's that looking at other people as well with eyes of through compassion, like being compassionate about other people. So trying to see the truth through eyes of love.
Exactly.
Rather than through our fear.
Yes. Beautiful. That is so true. And it's A Course in Miracles. It's that, because actually, if you look at if you look at the information expressed by those two people, the person that doesn't respect and the person that is not respecting, the likelihood is that they have the same root information, which is a lack of love and respect for themselves. One is aggressive and the other one is submissive, but they're both expressing the same kind of information. So it's walking away. It's not becoming a doormat, as they say in A Course in Miracles. Loving doesn't mean you become a doormat, but
it's a good one.
Yeah, I like that one. But it's understanding, wow, that person is hurting. Okay, well, I'm going to walk away from that, or I'm going to see it differently. But there's no blame involved. It's just an understanding, and it's just you set boundaries from a different place. Yeah.
And this comes back to what we were talking about before about awareness and knowledge. When we know that the other person is suffering and that's the reason why they're behaving in that way, that helps us to inform us. It gives us information that we can then use to make an informed decision about what we want to do here. It also helps to separate us. So yeah, I think it's always better to know why someone is doing something and to know that it's not about you.
Yes, for sure. To know that it's not about you, and also to know what you're seeing in them is about you, and you can change that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, so good. So good. I also just wanted to ask, this is a slightly off what we were just talking about, but with those 5 core emotions, fear, anger, disgust, sadness, joy. So 4 out of the 5 are what we would call bad emotions.
Yes. Okay. Well, again, you have to think in a way that the unconscious doesn't know good or bad, right? It's just survival. So you're given fear for biological reason, because fear enables you to run or to freeze. It's to protect you. Yeah. Anger is to enable you to take action. So when you're angry, you're going to have all the blood rush to your system, and it's going to enable you to take action. Disgust is for you not to get poisoned when you go, for example, you're in the jungle and you're eating those berries and, they're disgusting. So you don't eat it again. It's also for survival reasons. What was the other one? Sadness. Sadness has, for example, there's a sadness, the mourning sadness, which is really important when you lose somebody. And when our ancestors were cave people, well, it was to sort of get that space where you can nurture yourself. And that also has a positive survival sort of objective. And sadness, it also is there for you not to repeat things. If you've done something you've done something, it makes you sad, you're not going to repeat that. And the joy obviously fosters connection, and it also is sort of a reward. So it means you got to do that again, right? So it all has, there's always a positive intent behind everything you do, and there's a positive intent behind your emotions as well. So it's not to see them as good or bad. They just are.
I love this. Yes, they just are. I love this. This is, by the time we are airing this, it will already have happened. But this weekend, I've got a workshop I'm running all about self-expression and emotional intelligence, because I just love all of this. And this is exactly the point that we'll be talking about and using throughout this, throughout the workshop, which is that, our emotions, we see them as good or bad, but they just, as you said, just are. And they're just information telling us, we can use them to be like, oh, this makes me angry. So, okay, I know that it's anger. So now I can respond appropriately to adjust whatever I'm doing, because I don't want to remain in anger, but I'm going to acknowledge it and experience it. And to experience it, we have to know how it feels in our body and what it is. So we have to be like properly connecting to our body to be able to do that. But we don't suppress it, we don't attach to it, and we don't react to it. We allow it to pass like a wave, which is why they say like waves of emotion, and emotions connected with our second chakra, which is our sacral, which is all about, the element is water. It's all about flowing and waves. Because they pass, we aren't our emotions. They pass.
Exactly.
And so this is just so fascinating, because our emotions, no matter whether we think they're bad because it's emotion we don't want to feel, we have to have them because they're telling us something. We can't always stay in joy, and it would be really exhausting to be in joy all the time as well.
Yes.
So I just wanted to share that here, because I think that that's something that's really interesting, is redefining our relationship with our emotions and seeing that they all have this positive intent, how you were talking about. Exactly. So I think that's really useful to know what the why they were, what their initial intention was in the human race.
Yeah, for sure. And also, like what you were saying about, I feel contrast is so important, isn't it? Contrast is not good or bad either. It's there to help you grow. It's there to, it's all going back to that perception, to how we see things, and like understanding that it's not what happens to you, but how you see it that really matters.
Yes, absolutely. And so when we think about emotions, the impact of emotions on our body, why are emotions so connected to our body, to say, and I'm talking about this as in accidents or illnesses?
Okay. Yes. So for illnesses, they're really showing now that emotions play a big role, right? So even oncologists now are showing how much it's the emotion plays such a big role in cancer, for example, in the cancer happening. Basically because what we were talking about before, that the emotion connects the mind and body, and that your body really is an expression of what is going on in your mind a lot of the time. And not to say, BioNeuroEmotion is a complementary modality that we say. So it's, we use it alongside traditional medicine or traditional therapy, and it's taught in medicine schools as well in Latin America. So it's really embracing the fact that, that our mind plays a big role on what is happening to our body. And so if you think about it, again, taking the example of the sort of the lion and a lion running after you. So you're going to feel that expression, that fear. And so your body is going to literally put itself into gear so you can run. And so for you to run, it's going to shut down certain parts of your immune system, for example. Yes. Because you don't need that energy, you need it to run. So what happens, because we were saying that the unconscious mind doesn't distinguish between real and unreal, your boss can be that lion. The problem is in nature, when the lion is away, that's it. That emotion has expressed itself, your body has done what it had to do, and everything goes back to normal. But if you are thinking about your boss 24 hours, your body's not going to go back to normal. It's going to be in that flight sort of reaction, and your body is responding to that. So that's sort of the most clear kind of explanation I can give.
Yeah, that's really useful. So therefore, as well, this shows how our thoughts, what we can control in our conscious mind, so being aware of what we're thinking and how we're feeling, can help us to shift our reality.
Yes.
So could you speak a little bit about how this helps us manifest or change things in our reality in a way that we desire?
Yes. Okay, that's a great question. So let's see it's really important to understand that energy is information, right? And so your brain is processing billions of bits of information all the time. And so that makes you broadcast a certain frequency out there, and that's going to attract a certain reality to you. If you have an unconscious frequency there that's going around, that's what it's attracting. The unconscious part is attracting the reality. When you turn that unconscious information into conscious information, then you are able to change that frequency. Yes. And therefore you're going to attract a different reality. You don't attract what you want, but who you are.
Yeah.
So it's very important for you to become aware when something is triggering you, or when you are having an excessive reaction, or when there's a certain pattern in your life, to become aware that there's possibly some unconscious information there that needs to come to the light so you can attract different circumstances.
Which is why we can look at our circumstances and the reality that we have objectively, and look at what's happening and take responsibility in that. If I figure out what the unconscious aspect of this is, then I'm able to shift and change that. But if I don't have that knowledge, then I can't change it.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking this while I'm saying it, which means that when we have negative experiences in our life coming up, just like we started the conversation, this is actually a good thing, because it allows us to be able to shift those unconscious commitments that we've made, that we've been carrying along throughout our life.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it.
That is the beauty of it. And that's why most people's biggest transformations and biggest highs in their life happen after some sort of pain and suffering that has led to a breakthrough.
Exactly. Yes. Because they were able to access that information thanks to that pain and suffering, which doesn't mean, like Jess now says, she's like, you don't have to go through all that, but which is so nice. I mean, you know, to know that if you're doing all this work, you're also helping your descendants, and you're also helping people in your family not have to go through that. So maybe we'll be at a point where we're so conscious that we won't need to be clearing all that, and then we'll be living from a different place. I think that's Jess's work, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because we will have cleared all of, we've basically have got a new, I don't know what the word is, but like a new level that we're working from. Whereas now we're like clearing out all of this junk first, and that's going to create a new sort of equilibrium for our descendants to then start from, a new baseline.
Exactly, that's it. It's about, and what they say a lot, what Enrico Bea says a lot, it's about stepping into emotional adulthood. And out of, now we're teenagers, you know. On the emotional level, we're teenagers, we're learning, but it's about stepping into that adulthood.
Wow, it's amazing to think of what our lives will look like coming from that new baseline. And, you know, because we're not spending most of our life trying to clear out all of this stuff. And I guess that's just what evolution's all about. We just continue to improve and have different problems in our life.
Yes, and you nailed it. It's evolution. It's making the species stronger.
Incredible. So sorry, I've kept you for so long already, but it's been so fascinating, Danielle.
I've loved this. You can keep me on for ages more if you want.
Good. Well, I've got more questions for you that I want to know.
Okay.
So, okay. Let's talk about, so if someone has a session with a B&E practitioner, what happens, and who is someone that would be, you know, a great fit for a B&E session?
Okay, so anybody really, someone who wants to look into, either you have a physical symptom that, you know, you want to understand the emotional root cause, or you might have something that's happening in your life, a pattern that's repeating itself, say in relationships or you name it, or something that's simply overwhelming you. So it would be coming to the session with that in mind, and we would really make sure it's a specific, get you to describe a specific problem, because many people come to the session and they have what we call the interpretation of the problem and speak on another level. So it's to get you to speak on that really objective level. And so one of the things we say is that in a session, I don't want you to speak because I want to be able to hear you, which means that we're going to be really centering you back into the objective. So if you come to me and say, I have a bad relationship with my mom, I'll be like, what is bad? Because, you know, bad means bad for you and it means bad for me. So it will be taking you out of that interpretation, and then you will be able to see things more clearly. And then we will be going back to different moments of your life and then using different techniques to understand what the emotional root cause is. And then we will bring that back into your family and understand how that, you know, where it comes from, and just give you some new tools to see things differently in a nutshell. And basically B&E is for everybody. The only thing I would say is for people who really understand that they are the ones that need to change, not expecting us to give you the magic potion, or expecting somebody else in your family to change for you, or doing it for somebody else, for example. No, you do it for yourself, you know.
You have to take ownership.
Yes.
And so this is in a lot of ways similar to theta healing, where theta healing though is looking at the subconscious, and you and I have had discussions about how the subconscious and the unconscious are different, and this is something that is still completely up in the air in terms of the research. But basically, the process in theta healing is very similar, except you're in a theta state, so that's just type of brainwave, as the practitioner, and you are getting to the root, whatever the issue is that's presented. So someone comes with a problem, or it could also be a physical thing, and you are guiding them through objective questions, but also being guided by your own intuition as the practitioner on what to ask, which you probably use in B&E as well to some extent, knowing like what the next question is to ask, to get the person back to the root cause, the real underlying root cause behind whatever the issue is. And same thing, it's usually back in childhood because that's when the subconscious is formed. And with that awareness, there will be that shift in perception. But same thing as you, it has to be, you have to take the responsibility for your own life changing.
Yes. And it sounds like there's a lot of similarities actually, because you're saying about being in that brainwave is also you being in that innocent mind place. Innocent as in you just find it at the beginning, right?
Absolutely.
Innocent mind. So you're able to see things in a different way. So yeah.
Yes. And that's what allows you to tap in or feel more connected with your intuition because you're out of the mind.
Yes. Which also brings it back to actually, I really believe that we'll get to a place in time that we will be able to do that by ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, I think so as well. I hope so. I really hope so. I think that's definitely what's happening. This is what this whole, conscious movement and the Aquarian age is really kickstarting. And it's been something that, there's been a lot of work behind this for a long time. But how interesting that, a lot of these ancient practices are now being confirmed. So it takes a long time to change, but we're definitely, I think, at a really exciting time because we can actually see the changes happening.
Yes. And you said it really well. Those things that we're discovering, they thousands of years ago, people knew about them. Buddha was one of the first ones, right? That started observing his body and seeing how everything broke down. And, this is not new.
Incredible. And it's just like turning inwards instead of outwards, which is what I love that you mentioned in your own story. Okay, so if people want to book in a session with you or study B&E,
yes,
where can they go? What should they do?
Okay, so to book a session with me, you can go to my website, which is danniereeve.com. Maybe we can put something.
I'll include it in the show notes.
Okay,
yeah.
so not to spell my name. And then I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. I've just started, so bear with me. But it's at Dannie Reeve, same. And yes, in order to learn B&E, at the moment it's only offered in Spanish, but that is going to change. So same, there are discussions of this happening. And so stay tuned, and maybe if you need more information, feel free to contact me and I can explain. You can also go, if you speak Spanish, to the official webpage of the Enrique Corbera Institute, it's called. And I believe that they are actually going to give conferences in Los Angeles and Miami. So on November 1st in Los Angeles and Miami on November 8th. So he will be giving a conference there. I think at the moment it's going to be in Spanish. I'm unclear. I have to get the information. I haven't heard yet back to see if they have translators there. But I mean, if you are interested, just drop me a line and I can find out for you. And you can also contact the Institute.
Okay. Yeah. And just tell me quickly, because we spoke about this before, but studying B&E, can you just explain a little bit more about what's involved?
Yes, for sure. So there are different stages. I did the postgraduate course, which is also backed up by university. And that is a really complete course, which is not available at the moment in English. And I can't go into all the details of what it is, but it just takes you through the whole process. And we have to do also research paper. So it's very in-depth.
In-depth, yeah.
And then there is, I think the course that they're wanting to launch into English would be the Introduction to BioNeuroEmotion, which would give you the foundations, the principles, and also, help you look into the transgenerational theories, all the core principal theories of BioNeuroEmotions and the science behind that.
Amazing.
In a nutshell.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I was saying to Danny that I think I'd love to do that course. So I'm excited for it to come out when it does.
Yes, you would be a great fit, Letitia.
Thank you.
And also using theta healing with it would be great for you as well.
I know. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, okay, I'm going to shift direction in a moment. But before we move on, I just wanted, is there anything else that you felt that you wanted to raise about B&E?
No, not at the moment. Only that it's a beautiful method and I'm so passionate about it. That's the only thing I would say.
Actually, I've been reminded of something I wanted to say because I've done a session with you. And obviously I'm not going to go into what happened, but what I want to say is that, so I went about a cold, and from our session, I was able to understand so many things about myself and why I had the cold, but also deeper than that, why I was having, these sort of patterns coming up in my life and where that was coming from in just one session and just about a simple cold. And so that was really incredible for me, which is why I was like really blown away by B&E, and I really wanted to have you on. Well, also I wanted to have you on because we always have incredible conversations, and I already know there's a lot of overlap, but I just think that's important for me to mention there that, just a simple cold and the information that came out of that session was really profound.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The B&E appreciates your testimony.
Yeah, definitely.
Which just brings me on one last thing that I could say is that it's not a therapy in the sense that there's no follow-up. The maximum that we would see somebody on one issue would be three times, and that would be spaced in a month, like a month between. But usually it's just one session.
Yeah. So this is the same as like theta and RTT and all of those.
Exactly.
It's just so great that we've got all of these, because I think for people it's just really important to go with something that you believe in. And what I love about B&E is that it's just got so much of like you're covering all the different streams with science, but then also the metaphysical, and I just think that's super cool.
It is.
It really is. Okay, so I would love to pick your brain because I'm sure you'll be really helpful for our listeners to hear this, but you are also a member of my online program, Embrace Your Feminine Essence.
Yes, I'm one of the lucky members.
Yes, which is really, really cool. So because I had you on, I thought it would be awesome to just ask you a couple of questions. So if anyone has been listening to my podcast and has been curious to know more, they can hear from someone who's done the course themselves, your perspective. So I'd love to know, what did you enjoy most about the course? And particularly as a feminine strength woman.
Yes. Okay. That's great. You say that. I mean, I love the course. It was brilliant. I really like, especially because Letitia, I know you, and I also know that you walk your talk. It was you're somebody, when I met you, I was like, oh my gosh, she's such a feminine person and really in her feminine. And you were the kind of person I wanted to learn from in that sense. So
Thank
much.
you.
And you really, really created a beautiful space where you feel really nurtured, and there's so much information in the course. It's packed with information. I mean, I still go through it again and I still learn new things as I go. So the content is amazing. And also because, firstly, I learned in your course that I'm a feminine strength person, which was completely mind-blowing to me because I thought of myself always as much more in my masculine, because my feminine is something that I'd really suppressed, and going back into what we were talking about before, there's a reason for that, because in my family, being female is kind of seen as dangerous. So that all ties into that. So for me, it was just very empowering to be in your course and learn that, and then learn all the tools, especially about my cycle. I felt that was so amazing, because it was really learning to embrace your feminine and love it and feel proud about it. And I feel that's how I walked away feeling so empowered for that reason.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you mentioned actually about that, even though your feminine strength female, you'd suppress that. And I think that this is why, whether you're a masculine strength or a feminine strength person, it's relevant. I am a feminine strength person. I know that, but I too suppressed my feminine energy through most of my adult life, at least, because, well, it doesn't even matter why. It does go back for generations, I'm sure, but just even in my environment in work, to be able, in a culture that's so focused on action and doing, you had to become that. You had to become a masculine focused person. But the point is that we need both of these, and they both support each other, and they're interdependent. And so if you're too much in your masculine, that's where you lead to things like overwhelm and burnout. But if you're too much in your feminine, just nothing ever gets done.
Exactly, yes. And that's so good how you were able to balance that out. And even in the tips you gave that I apply today in my business, for example, tips of how to combine those, even when you make a to-do list, which is very masculine, and then use it in an energy way, which is doing what you feel like on that list, for example. That was a great tool for me. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Because so one of the things we talk about in the course for anyone listening is there's a lot of integration spoken about in, your personal life, but also for your business, because I am a business owner, and a lot of the people that I work with and who are in the Embrace Your Feminine Essence community are also entrepreneurs or business owners. We've also got a lot of people who are, a bit of both in the corporate world or have another job and are also a business owner. So we focus on, okay, how can we use this in work? How can we use both our masculine and feminine energy in a balanced way? How can we use it in our business? How can we use it in our personal life? How can we use it for like creative projects or relationships? Because that practical information is, you can understand the theory, but to have practical examples, I feel, is really important. Is that what you found as well?
Yes, I did. Yes. And it's really, really, yes, because it enabled me to apply it to my daily life. Because there's one thing is understanding something, and another thing is putting it into practice. And I think your course really helped put it into practice. And also having that community where you can talk with, and go through this all together. And I feel it's so amazing, because when you are part of a community like that, you do go through things all together, and things happen on another level.
Absolutely. And I thought that was really, really important for particularly this subject matter, because most of the things we cover in feminine energy, which is a good focus of the course, is on that. We also talk about masculine energy the whole time because they're relative. So you can't talk about one without talking about the other. But feminine energy is subjective, which means that my experience of something might be different to you, and it will be different to someone. So when we have the community and the coaching calls as well, it's really important, one, for our accountability to be talking about it, and then that helps us do it in our life, but also to get someone else's perspective about, what they've learned about, how intuition shows up for them, or how creativity works best for them, or how their menstrual cycle works,
Yes, it's all about these different perspectives and getting them all together, no? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so thank you so much for mentioning about the community, because that is really important. We all learn from each other for sure. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention that you think would be useful for someone listening who's maybe thinking about, okay, they aren't sure whether it's the right course for them?
Oh my God, I would recommend this course with I don't know how to say it in English, but I'd put my hand on the fire for it, because it's if you are really in a place where you're just looking for some balance in your life, and I think that's a course for you for sure. And also a lot of I know men can attend the course as well, but I'm talking from a feminine or female perspective. I think a lot of us struggle with embracing that feminine side of ours. And I think men also do struggle with that. Absolutely. Embracing their feminine. And I feel your course is such an important course in this moment in time, because there is a rise of the feminine, and that's what's making the world change in so many great ways. So, join that course to be part of that change, I would say.
Absolutely. And actually, you mentioned a really good point about men. It being really important for men as well to embrace their feminine essence and energy. I think this makes it even more important for women to understand feminine energy, because we have a stronger affinity to a lot of these concepts. So we are able to then help the people in our life and the guys in our life as well, our children, whoever, however they show up, with these concepts too. So you're right. It's not about gender. It's something we all have. But I think that probably it will be women who have to lead that shift. Yes. In from a sort of the broader sense of it all.
Yes, and from an empowered sense.
Yes. And I love, because you spoke about this being empowering, having this information. And I think, the more we know about ourselves, as we've just learned through this whole discussion that we've had about B&E, the more we consciously are aware of, then the more the better off we are because of that, because we can then change our reality. So if you're feeling things like really stressed in whatever you're doing, or you're not getting things done, if your reality isn't showing up in the way that you want it to, understanding how that your two sources of power within you work, I think is really fundamental to being able to change that.
Yes.
In your life. Totally.
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Well, it was so beautiful having you a part of the course and from the very first intake.
I enjoyed it so much as well. It was a real gift for me. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, so because usually I've got 2 more questions for you, and then that will be it. Now we're going to change course.
Okay.
Again, because usually the focus of the podcast, as you will have known from listening to it previously in the past, has always been about purpose. And I love these conversations because knowing someone else's journey is really helpful for people to, it's expansive for people because it's inspiring. But it also shows us, how people find that sense of purpose in their life. Mm. So I'd love to know from your own journey, what purpose means to you and how you've sort of uncovered what you feel was most significant in uncovering purpose in your life.
Okay. I would say purpose, I understand, is joy. Mm. It's a way of expressing joy, purpose.
It's beautiful.
I would say the way I was able to find my own purpose, or I'd say my purposes, because I believe that you have many different purposes in life, is by really understanding how to look within and stop looking without for answers. Mm. And, something that also helped me find one of my purposes, which is BNE, and which is all this journey, is facing my shadow. And I feel that's a big part of it. Understanding, as we said, that those things that you feel happen to you that are, quote unquote, I don't know if a better word, horrible or whatever, are actually gold mines. And they're there. And underneath all that, there's a gold mine for you to discover. And I really believe that one of our purposes on this journey that we call life is to uncover those treasures, bring them to the light, and share them with the rest of the world.
Oh, I love that. That's so, so beautiful. So beautiful. And I couldn't agree more. So what would be your advice for someone listening who wants to get started figuring out, or finding more purpose in their life?
Yeah, I would say look within, listen to your heart, and have faith.
Now, I'm sorry, but I remembered one other question I want to ask you.
By the way.
I know that you love women's circles, and also you're a member of Flow, and I know that flow and intuition has played a big part in your life and the way that you run it. I'd just love to know, with women's circles, why have you found those to be such a great experience for you? And also, how intuition and flow, following your flow and following your intuition, how that helps you be connected to yourself.
Wow, the women's circle, I feel, is a fundamental part of my life today. I was lucky enough to be introduced to one when I got to London. Her name is Tanmaya George. She's a wonderful lady and also uses a lot of metaphysics. And I just feel it's such an amazing space where we really connect with other women in a very supportive way. And I feel it's something a lot of us have to relearn, because we have been not supporting each other because women have gone through what they've gone through, and generation after generation. And so we've created a sense of distance and maybe competition, and all these things have arisen where really we need to relearn, if we don't know already, how to work together and how to accept each other and support each other. I think it's so important. And I feel those circles really offer that space for you to be able to reconnect with that. So that's really what I would say about women's circles. And the second part of your question,
intuition and flow, how has that helped you on looking inwards rather than outwards?
Yes. Oh my God, intuition is such a big part of my life. It's something I feel is something we all have anyway. I feel it's something that I've always kind of tapped into instinctively, and I think all of us do. Finding out about Jess Lively's course really helped me even further, and writing to my intuition. I feel that's so important when I have something that's overwhelming me. Really like looking within and writing to my intuition will help me find solutions from a different place. What I find a lot of the time is that your intuition just comes out with the most unexpected answers and unexpected, solution.
Wisdom.
It is greater than, this is greater than us. There's some form of intelligence coming through, exactly. Yeah. And following that is just amazing. And sometimes it's scary because it's so irrational. And you're like, what? You want me to do that? But, I came to London because my intuition told me to. And I was so scared. I was like, what the heck? And it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. So I would say, without a doubt, listen to your intuition. Listen to your heart over your mind anytime.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a while for our rational mind to get on board with why the intuition has told us to go a certain way. So
yeah, it's trying to make sense of it all, isn't it?
It is. It's trying to make sense of it all, but the intuition's like coming from somewhere else. So it's, it's drawing from so many other sources and has this almost top-down view of what's going on in your life. And it calls you just to trust, doesn't it? To really trust in it.
It does. And trust is a big part of this journey. You've got to trust.
Yep, absolutely. And and that's one of, I love module 3 of Embrace Your Feminine Essence, which is all on trust, because I think personally in my life, like I also love all of the cycle stuff. I love that stuff. But trust for me has been such big lesson in my life that I'm constantly relearning and diving into deeper in all the different ways that we can look at trust. And I think that that was probably true for most people because of this like preconditioning with fear and the way that our minds work. So yeah, it's a big lifelong lesson.
Yes, it is. And trust is love, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's a very feminine virtue. I'm not saying it's feminine in the sense that we all have feminine and masculine in us, right?
Yes,
I'm not saying it's a female virtue. I'm saying it's a feminine virtue.
Exactly. I know. Good disclaimer. Good disclaimer. Oh, amazing. Now, is there any other parting message you want to share, or have we covered everything? It's been so wonderful to speak to you.
I've had such fun. It's been such a wonderful conversation. And I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me to be here and have that conversation with you. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on, because this has been so much fun, and this is packed with information, helpful information, and that is really going to help people, I believe, in showing up for their purpose and also, becoming more empowered people, which is amazing, and conscious.
That's so great.
There it is, my beautiful friend. I hope you enjoyed that episode with Dannie Reeve. Thank you, Dannie, so much for coming on and sharing your beautiful wisdom with all of us. There were so many takeaways in this episode. I absolutely adored listening back to it, and it just allowed me to cement so many different things that were swirling around in my own mind. And I've had so much fun just pondering on all of these topics since we recorded this, and I hope that you listening will also find the same. So I just want to say here that really the main message I'd love for you to take away from this, or the main message that I think is super important to take away, is that one that is empowering, that we are able to change our reality simply through changing our perception. And so doing things like this, where we get to learn more about how our brains work, how our bodies work, how the mind work, is a way to empower us. Education is always empowerment. And then we've got to take it that next further step and actually implement what we're learning. So if you are someone that's suffering with any sort of, pattern coming up in your life, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, no matter what I do, I just can't seem to stop this, then taking some action to get help and to potentially, see a B&E practitioner, or see a theta healer, or go and do RTT or some form of hypnosis, or try some other modality that will help you to uncover and make conscious and to become aware of what it is that is stopping you from doing what you desire. This is a form of empowerment when we take action. So I also want to use this moment to let you know of a beautiful offer that Dannie has extended for all of you listening to the podcast. If you would like to take Dannie up on her offer to have a B&E consultation with her, she is offering to anyone who listens to this podcast and books an appointment with her during the month of November to give you 15% off her usual standard rate. All you need to do is contact Dannie and use the description BNE/Letitia Ringe, and she will give you 15% off her usual standard rate. Now, I also want to let you know that there are 2 conferences coming up. They're both held in Spanish, but they will be in America, one in LA on the 1st of November and one in Miami on the 8th of November, if you are interested in studying BNE. So I will share those in the show notes for this episode, which you will be able to find at letitiaringe.com/Dannie Reeve, DANNIEREEVE. And you can check out Dannie's website at danniereeve.com, and you can follow Dannie on Instagram at The Art of Living Consciously. So thank you so much to Dannie for offering that to all of our listeners. That's so wonderful. And if anyone does book in a session with Dannie, please let me know, because I would love to hear how it goes. And obviously you don't need to tell me the details, but I just love to know who's done it. I found it, as I mentioned in the podcast, to be so incredibly helpful. And whenever I notice other, unconscious blocks coming through, that something is blocking me and I don't know why, I will definitely be using Dannie's services again, or I will be, going to a theta healing session myself, or doing some form of RTD, or taking some form of action to help me make the unconscious conscious so that I can change my reality. Anyway, I don't want to say too much because this episode has already gone on for so long. It's been so wonderful. You're going to have so much to think about. I wanted to remind you that if you are interested in diving deeper into this area of purpose, so that you are 1, living in alignment with your purpose, and 2, showing up for that purpose, because I find that that's one of the biggest things that happens for people. We start to recognize where our purpose might lie, what is calling us, and then we don't actually take any action to do it. It could be because of fear, it could be because it's asking us to do something different. And this is where people need a ton of help. So I am working on a project, as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, that is going to be really, really helpful for you and my community to overcoming that. As you know, purpose is basically the focus of my work. I work with many clients on this area. I've had my own personal experience and journey, and it is something that I am just on a mission to help as many people as possible live in alignment with their purpose, because I believe that that is really how we find fulfillment, and that purpose comes in so many different forms. It doesn't just need to be through our jobs, but I do believe it is our work here in the world to do. And when we live in alignment with our purpose, we give back to our communities and to this world, which allows us all as a community to evolve. So if you want to find out more, you want to know more, the best place to hear more is to be signed up for my newsletter at letitiaringe.com/community. This is also where I share all the details of my latest content and tools and resources for you. So if you like my work and you enjoy following me, it's a good one to be signed up for. I don't send you anything that doesn't have a specific intention or purpose behind it, and it's a great way to stay connected. So please join me there. And if you are someone who is also super interested in diving into your feminine energy some more, just like Dannie and I were talking about in this episode, I invite you to please check out Embrace Your Feminine Essence. As soon as you enroll, you have access to all of the course materials. And as I mentioned, I will be holding 3 live group coaching calls where I'll be sharing some more on some further topics related to embracing your feminine essence during the month of November and December this year. And I'm so excited to be doing that. This is a wonderful opportunity. So if you are thinking of joining, it's a great time to join now, and I would love to see you there. Just head to letitiaringe.com/EYFE. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, my beautiful friends. I hope that you had a wonderful day and you enjoyed taking this space for yourself. And I'm so excited to see you in our next episode. Until then, I hope you have a beautiful week. Thank you so much for listening to the Create a Life That Is Beautiful podcast. If you feel called, I would love it if you could please take a minute to rate and review this podcast on iTunes. This helps other people like you find it. And I also invite you to take a moment to share this episode with a friend you know needs to hear it.